What's up? I'm Michelle,
And I'm Alondra.
and it's another late night.
Yep, another late night. Welcome to our podcast. I think it's been a busy week for both of us. We've just kind of been, I've been working a whole lot, and then you've had other things going on. And then there's like been a lot of other crazy things going on. Um,
Yep.
Politically, there's been the trials. Oh, and then there was those Ricky Martin allegations, which I thought were rather interesting, which were dropped. Now, I mean,
That
everybody
yeah,
knows
that was interesting.
Ricky
I'm
Martin.
glad
So,
that was dropped.
me
Honestly,
too. I didn't. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'm not a huge fan of Ricky Martin or anything. I don't keep up with him, but it just sucks hearing about stories like that with people in the LGBT community because then it just fuels the flame on the conservative side of see, we told you those are the people that are molesting your kids, and they use that shit and it just fans the flame. So I'm so glad that that got dropped because I hate when something gets to fan the flames of the conservative like hate spew.
Yeah. So apparently, his nephew, who suffers from mental illness, was saying that they had had a relationship for 7 months, and that Ricky was stalking him and was like physically abused him, domestic violence type thing. Um, Ricky, which is weird because Ricky was in the United States filming something. Like he wasn't like there.
uh
So he couldn't say anything. Apparently, the laws in Puerto Rico, this was according to his statement, said that they didn't allow him to say anything regarding the situation. And
yeah,
so he was just like he didn't say anything, kept his mouth shut. Then it came out later that it was his nephew. And then his nephew kind of dismissed the whole case and had the judge remove the restraining order, said that he was doing it voluntarily. And um and then that was that. Now, I will say this, the group Menudo, which Ricky Martin was a part of when he was very young, has a lot of controversy associated with it. There have been a lot of members alleging that they were abused. So
by who? By
by
Ricky
their
Martin?
manager, their management
Oh
team, yeah. Oops, sorry. By their management team. That was like years ago. That was never been confirmed. It's just been allegations. Not that it has anything to do with that, but that was just basically on this some background and basically on the subject of abuse. Ricky
yeah,
was like, when he gave his statement, he was like surprised, I'm sure. I mean, how do you go back to that? Especially because I'm sure he's known his nephews obviously since he was a baby. They're family members, and like any Latino family, they're probably all super close. So I don't know. I mean, this one's a tough one, right? But at the same time, you want to, respect the relationships you have with your siblings. But at the same time, like, how do you deal with somebody who's dealing with a mental illness where they're going as far as doing, false allegations? And
yeah,
there are people, depending on what type of medication they're taking, depending on what's going on, do get delusional about those sorts of things, and having to deal with that, I'm assuming, is very, very difficult. He's saying that he was going to have like time to heal, and he was going to kind of heal with his music, and he's hoping that his nephew heals himself too. He never, what's interesting, he never mentioned him by name. Like, he didn't say my nephew. He always kept it like the individual. And I don't know if it was for privacy concerns or if it was a statement that was vetted through, obviously
like
his
his
PR
attorney or
team
something.
and his
Yeah,
PR team, and using certain terms to create maybe some distance between him and his nephew. I don't know.
yeah,
Overall, very sad story, and I'm glad it kind of the nephew kind of removed those charges. So pretty
yeah.
interesting 2 weeks for Ricky Martin.
I just had the fourth Amber Alert today.
Me too. I've been getting those quite frequently. This one's a child abducted in Kemper, Texas. White oh 07
Yep,
Toyota
yep.
Tundra. Ooh, the
That's what
victims
I
are
just
three
got.
year old, 3-year-old.
That's the
Oh,
fourth one today.
It's like a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old. I mean, it's not. I don't know, 3-year-old, 4-year-old. I don't know what people are doing with their just taking kids. I, you know, I don't know, man. I mean, some of it is
Yeah,
like
it's
legit,
crazy.
and some of it is kids being caught up in some sort of custody battle. I
Like
don't know.
family drama.
Like
Yeah.
family drama. So you're just like, well, which is it? But regardless, sometimes this family drama is a lot more
Well,
serious
sometimes
than
they
the,
do kidnap them, like the
yeah,
parent.
yeah, the parent does. The
Yeah.
parent does because of X reason. And I had a friend who would say that he always made sure that the women he had sex with were his friends. In the event that they got pregnant, he would be able to have
Like
a
a relation.
friendship, maintain a
Yeah.
relationship with them, because at some point he liked him as a friend level. And this was back in the 90s, so you can imagine that was like a young guy saying those things. Speaking of that, being friends and not wanting I've met quite a few people that are getting like vasectomies lately, like men who have children or who have families that have decided to just like get snipped. And I really do think that that's
Yeah.
really the responsible thing to do. In all honesty, if you already have the children that you want, like, why wouldn't you get snipped? It's less evasive, it's reversible for men. The hormones that the women are taking with contraception, like whether it's if you're a wife, right?
Yeah.
IUD and pills and all of those,
Those can
those
be
aren't
so
good for you.
painful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're not good for you. So with that said, if the men do it, I think it's a win-win. Just started thinking about that,
Well,
just
and most
given. Go
women,
ahead.
they won't
Yes.
let you. Like if you go to your doctor and say, like, I want my tubes tied, or I want a hysterectomy or something like that, they literally will be like, no. They'll straight up tell you, like, no, because you're
Yeah.
too young and you're still gonna want more kids. And like, it was a battle for me to even get my hysterectomy, even
You know
having a
what?
medical condition for getting it taken out.
That that's weird, because my doctor had no issue asking me, getting it done for me, had no issue, no concerns.
Oh,
And
that's
then when I was
good.
talking to my mom, when she was in Corpus, everybody knew this gynecologist that was like, "Oh, he'll take your stuff out if you want it, like, no problem." I don't
Oh, okay.
know if it was because a minority majority city, and the way women of color are treated in the medical care system is a lot different than,
Yeah, they're willingly to sterilize people in that community.
yeah, they're more willing to sterilize people in that community. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it. Who knows? I like to
Yeah.
assume positive intent, but yeah, who
Yeah.
knows what happened. So yeah, there was a doctor that was infamous for doing that, and if you wanted to get that done, you could. Um, Not necessarily like an issue. But yeah, like I think for some women it may be very difficult. The doctor won't be willing to do with you depending on what your demographic is. And
Yeah,
if you want to
especially
have
younger
children,
women.
I was having a conversation with a friend of mine about like younger women, because women are waiting, like if you're in your 30s to have children, I mean the time's ticking, right? And so we
Mm.
were talking about the freezing of the eggs and how important is if it is if you're in your early 30s to go ahead and start freezing your eggs, because if you
Yeah.
want to have children later, that's going to be like the way to do it, but the decisions need to make soon. I don't think people talk enough.
Well, I mean, they're looking at not even allowing IVF anymore. The Conservative Party doesn't want to allow IVF because for all those embryos that you uh, basically fertilize, they have to get thrown out. Therefore, it's already been fertilized, it's conception, and then now it's being thrown out. So they're not looking like IVF's gonna be a thing.
You could always go to Mexico. I mean, it's there if you want to do something. I mean, you could always go to Canada, you can go to Mexico. At the end of in order for you to get those treatments, you have to have money to do them.
Mhm.
In all honesty, it's not something that somebody who
Yeah.
um, doesn't make a certain level of income is going to be able to afford.
Yeah.
Because even the retrieval, having to freeze the eggs, paying for the freezing of those eggs.
Yeah.
So, and even once you freeze it, if your body's willing, if you decide to have them in your 40s, if your body can take the egg, or you're going to get a surrogate, regardless, it's a lot of money spent that I don't
Yeah.
think people, you have to have a certain socioeconomic level to do it. It's sad. It's sad because if you look at other countries, it's not that expensive.
In other
I'm not sure
countries,
if,
yeah.
yeah, in other countries it's not that
A lot of
expensive to
things
get that
aren't that
done.
expensive medically in
Yeah.
other countries, but here it
Yeah.
is.
Like, I don't think it's that expensive. And even then, so one thing I can agree on, something that Mike Pence said, and I saw him, I just saw a snippet of what he said, was that it really shouldn't cost $70,000 to adopt a child. Like, it
Yeah,
shouldn't cost that much. And
I
I
saw that too.
100% agree with that, with that statement. I'm just, and I'm saying the statement. I'm clarifying that the
Yeah,
statement, because he's 100% right. It shouldn't cost $70,000 to adopt a child. Like, that is
yeah.
ridiculous amounts of money for a
And
child
there,
that you want to give a good home to.
yeah, well, there are ways to like kind of go around that, like fostering. Like if you want to foster a child, it's you actually get paid to foster the kid. It doesn't cost you anything to foster the kid. They pay you to foster the kid. Um, but yeah, if you just straight up want to adopt a child, like if you want to adopt somebody's baby, yeah, it costs a lot of money.
And fostering is a very emotional thing, right? So you have to go into fostering and keep in mind that you're fostering the child for the purpose of reuniting it with the parent. That is the
Sometimes.
sole purpose. Yeah. For the most part. I mean, they tell you that when you go to the class. They say, "Hey, if you're
Yeah, but
thinking out
that's
of
not
adopting a
typically what
system."
happens.
Yeah, but that's what they tell you in the class. And just knowing people who have fostered children, they give in the state of Texas so many opportunities for the parent to get their act together, that
Hmm.
sometimes they'll have a child and then they'll remove it. The parent, and goes back to the parent. The parent doesn't have their act together, and the child goes back to either another foster parent, and if they're
Yeah,
lucky, they go back to the same foster parent. It is a very, very, I really do think, honestly, that we need to revamp the foster care system,
yeah,
because some of these incidents where the parent doesn't get their act together and the kid is going back to the parent, and now even more abused than they were before. And so it gets into a bad situation. Not to mention that the foster parent is heartbroken because now they're sending the child off to who knows what situation and what circumstances, to get hurt even more so. And
yeah,
unfortunately, I've seen that firsthand, on having to deal with it, having very people close to me having to deal with that part of the foster care process, of having to give this whole give and take with the child, until the parent finally decides, either the court decides or the parent decides to give up custody. So very,
hmm,
very sad situation.
yeah,
But I mean, it's certainly something that but I think people are more willing to give money to PETA and to those organizations than they are really to give to, or put focus on, things like foster care and child advocacy. There, for me, it's like, okay, well, puppy stays the same way, but I don't really think that they put in as much effort into the advocacy of kids that are in the system.
yeah. Well, I mean, you definitely have to get out there, right? Like people have to know about it. They have to know how to donate to it and things like that. And I don't know. I mean, there are organizations, but the government doesn't make it easy. And the government, their system with all things are just archaic, right? Like you look at the
For
way
sure.
Social Security is handled, it's archaic. like you cannot even do stuff on the computer through SSI. You literally have to do everything via paper and fax and going in by appointment and um anything that has to do with the government is just so archaic and like paper only and snail mail, and they don't make it easy to do things and with the new technologies up to date at all. I just
No,
had to deal with getting all my uncle's social security changed for his address and stuff. Literally had to wait like 40 minutes for someone to come to the phone. I tried to do it online. It said you cannot update the address online. Like, it's just archaic. They need to update and revamp all the systems.
they're not gonna put in the money. I mean, it's like anything else, right? They put in the money
Yeah,
in the
they're not
beginning.
gonna.
Yeah, they're not gonna. They're gonna do it when they earmark it, or it becomes so archaic that they can't manage it
When we
anymore.
get
It's
people in
unfortunate.
who actually care, it'll get changed. Until then, it's gonna stay what it is.
Yeah, and the people who allocate funds to it. But I mean, who knows? Who knows? Who knows what's going on right now? It's a lot of things. I saw some video of one of the senators running,
Oh,
and
Josh Hawley.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah,
He was running, and I was just like, it's funny because it created a chuckle even in the
the audience.
in the
Oh, the January
audience.
6th thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, in the audience, and I thought that was rather interesting. I guess because it was the whole topic is so serious that I think it was just a little bit of comic relief in a very, very serious topic.
Well, it's funny because literally just earlier before that, he was giving them the power fist outside. That's what's funny about it. And then later he's running to save himself.
But because I don't think he realized that they he might have not
They were
realized how like
serious.
they were serious they were. How serious they were. I mean, they were gonna go grab Mike Pence.
And Nancy Pelosi and AOC. But that's the thing. Like, the majority of those people don't even know who's who. You know damn well that most of those people did not know who's who in there.
Probably not.
And so
Probably
they were
not.
just going to grab whoever.
I think there's some people that went in there with an agenda,
Yeah.
and then those few people that'll be unfortunately that's being vetted out by the court system on who really was, a part of it and who really was just being, but either way, right? It's going to cost them money either to prove their innocence or, or to settle or to plea a deal. Because somebody's like, "Hey, I
Many
just
of them
followed
have
the
already been charged.
yeah, I've been charged with that." And now
Steve
it's up
Bannon
to
was
the
just convicted and charged with
what
like
is
two
he
counts.
what is he gonna what did they give him? What is sentence?
Mm, I don't know if he's been sentenced, but he was just charged.
Oh, he was charged. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wonder how I was like gonna look him up real quick to see if he had been sentenced, but he's been charged. So yeah, I wonder how many of those folks were really there with an agenda, and how many of those folks were just like just there and just said, "Okay, I'm running in because everybody else is running in." I don't.
So
I'm not sure how many were
one of
organized. Like what
the
was?
like one of the head of the Proud Boys or whatever, he
Yeah, he's very
I
nice.
think he's getting like 15 years or something. And he actually was charged with sedition.
So he probably had an agenda.
Oh yeah, for sure. The so I forget what group this guy was with, but he was with one of the like Proud Boy or whatever they are, but he was saying that they basically had a plan, and like their plan was literally to take them people to the gallows. And there
Crazy.
was bombs and stuff that they had planted, and yeah.
I feel like I live in like a bizarre world.
It's so weird right
Bizarre.
now. I was talking about that with my nanny today, that it's just, so much stuff right now just doesn't feel real, and like there's so much going on, like so much serious stuff going on right now. And people are just going about their daily lives and they're still making people work. And, you know, like Sydney, Australia flooded really bad like last week or the week before. And the heat waves in the UK killed like, I forget how many people. And it's crazy. So crazy with everything going on right now
The heat waves here,
in
the
the
heat
UK.
here. Yeah, in the UK, and then the heat here. Like the heat, I think we
Yeah, the
had a
heat here
record
too.
day. We had like a
Yeah,
record day not too long ago.
it was
And
like
then I was watching,
113
yeah, and I was watching some waves go over these apartments. Like I was
in
watching this
Hawaii.
video in
Yep.
Hawaii. Did you see that? That was like
Yeah.
insane. So we're obviously harming ourselves. One thing I do think that natives got like right is they really understood the relationship between
The land that
ourselves,
you live off
the
of.
land that you live on.
Yeah.
Like they really knew that we were stewards of the land, and understood the concept, right, of protecting it.
Well,
Um,
it's sacred to them, right? Like the land
yeah,
is sacred because it gives us life.
yeah, and water,
And
and those
that
things, yeah, for
people
sure.
are like, "Oh, the climate's always changing," but people don't realize, many people don't realize that the last time carbon emissions were this high, humans did not live on the planet because
Yeah,
they couldn't.
yeah.
And there's a graph that you can look at that shows basically what carbon levels looked like for thousands of years. And it pretty much just went like this. And then we had our technological era, and carbon just went straight up from there after it was just basically a straight line for like thousands of years. And yeah, I don't know. It's crazy how people can just sit there and deny that we are not causing more issues to the planet with carbon and trash and stuff, like just to be that naive and be like, "Oh, climate's always changing." Well, yeah, it's always changing, but not that fast.
I just think
And
that this. Yeah, go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say, like crops and stuff, right? Like the temperatures that we're seeing. I had to go over part of Lake Louisville today, and it was dried up. The part that I drove over was dried up,
Wow.
and it was between the Colony to Frisco. And I mean, a large amount of the floor you could see it. And it's just crazy to see all that. And like 3,000 cattle in Texas had to be taken to the slaughterhouse like 2 weeks ago because there's no grass for them to eat, and they've already started feeding them the hay that they normally feed them in the winter. And so they
Oh,
couldn't
I heard
keep
about
them,
that. Yeah, for
and then
sure.
crops and stuff, like crops can't survive in this 113-degree weather with no rain.
Yeah, and in Oklahoma, that's what they were saying, that what are they going to do? And that she was saying that people are like sending their cattle back, like they're returning
Texas
their
too.
cattle. Yeah, in
Texas
Texas.
too. Yeah,
That's sad.
it's crazy.
It is crazy because then we're going to be worried about food shortages and those sorts of
In
things,
water.
and
I
water.
mean, the Hoover Dam is already getting so low, and there's 4 states that depend on the water from the Hoover Dam. And it's
Yeah.
almost so low that it's not even going to be able to turn on.
So how are they going to get
They
um
don't, they have no idea.
vegetation? Like what is it? Nevada's one of those states, I'm sure.
It is. Yep.
It is an interesting time for sure. I mean, what are you going to do? How are you going to plant fruits and vegetables if you don't have water for them? Are we
I
going to
water
need
my plants every single day on my patio, and they are still struggling right now with this heat. Like they're
Yeah.
just crispy, just crispy.
Yeah,
And I water them twice a day.
it's
And they
ins-
get
it
shade part of the day. And I
it's
mean, you just
insane
imagine huge fields.
of like you said, crispy plants, right? That they're
Yep,
just not
just
producing
dried up and
vegetables. What are you
dried.
gonna
Yep.
do?
Well,
What are you
because
gonna do?
that's
What are
the thing too. Like if it's too hot outside, if it's too extreme, the plants won't produce the fruit, right? Like the vegetables or the fruit of the plant. It just won't produce it if it's an extreme temperature.
you know what? I don't know what's gonna happen because I'm fairly interested on how we're gonna deal with food, and I don't think we'll see it. Maybe we'll start catching up. I know that the cost is going up,
Yeah,
and I
I
mean,
think we're supposed to
ridiculous.
start actually seeing the shortages in 2023.
Yeah, that'll be very, very interesting
Yep,
to see.
especially with China, Iran, and Russia, and like two other countries teamed up with them this past week. I forget who it was, but
Is it
they,
brick? Is that what they're brick?
I'm not
That
sure. They
that's
just
the
made some kind of
acronym?
like super PAC or some shit
Is
against the
yeah, I
West.
think we talked about this. It's not brick. What is it called? No, what does it mean? Oh, yeah, Brazil, Russia, India, and China.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
think
brick.
Iran
Yeah.
was there too.
Yeah, it's Iran. Yeah, Iran was in it. That's brick. Yeah. And they have a lot of they met not too long ago.
Yeah, it was like a week or so ago.
Yeah. I don't know, I thought it was more so than that, but yeah. They met not too long ago. We're seeing all these things happening in Latin America, El Salvador with the library.
What about the library? I don't
Well,
know
it's
about the library.
no, I think we talked about it. The library that China owed built
Oh,
for
that they
them.
were yeah, I got you. Yeah. China
Yeah,
owns
that's a
everybody though. We have so many buildings here in the US that China built.
yeah, sure.
Like China owns everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean technically I guess they're still a communist country.
Oh, for sure they are. Yep.
That is just yeah. They are yeah, they are. Yep, it's still a communist country. Very interesting. Very interesting. And I wonder how this is all going to pan out. I think the I think I sent you a video about all these changes with having like more representation in several Latin American countries of people of color and indigenous folks that is not seen. I will say this, the fight for equal rights of people of color has been going on much longer in those countries than in the United States.
Mm.
Much, much longer. Just because um, slavery wasn't like we were still doing Jim Crow laws. Not, you know what? The more I think about it, because people make it seem like it was so long ago, but it wasn't
Oh,
that
it
long
wasn't.
ago. It
Yeah.
wasn't that long ago. I think some of those people that were that benefited, I mean, they're still around. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. My dad
I think it was
does
like the
tell me when
50s, right?
60s and even well into the 70s in some
Yeah,
places.
it's not that long ago.
Yeah, no, not that long ago. My dad tells me about being thrown out of restaurants. It wasn't like they would throw them out, saying, "Hey, you can't," or they wouldn't serve them at all. So
Did
it's
you
pretty
see
interesting.
that I forget where it was, but they're allowed to basically put out signs that like no Jews allowed. What state was that? I forget
Was
what
it some
state it
law in
was.
Tennessee? I didn't even get a chance to
Maybe
read that.
Tennessee. Yeah.
Was it Tennessee? I don't know where it
And
was.
that they're allowed to discriminate about not letting Jewish people adopt. And
Was
I
it
think
religious
it
organizations? Oh, you know
yeah,
what? We talked about that because that's why a lot of the I want to say the Catholic adoption organizations closed down, like they closed their adoption centers down because with the new laws, they would be considered discrimination because it's so if since it's a faith-based adoption agency, they were going to want to have it like a two-parent traditional family. Like they wouldn't even allow a
Texas
single
is
woman to
moving for
adopt.
that. Texas is
Uh,
moving for that. If the GOP wins, they only want straight um couples or straight individuals be allowed to adopt, and that
They wouldn't
only
they wouldn't in the Catholic deal, they wouldn't let me adopt. Like if you were a single woman or a single man, you know, straight or even regardless
yeah,
of orientation, they were not going to let you adopt. So I can go to
because
Catholic
you're
charities
single.
and say, yeah, because I'm single. So they were very big on that. I'm I'm of the belief that I don't think you should argue with people about their religion. I mean, they're going to believe what they're going to believe. And so, but what I don't agree with is once you start utilizing state funding for things like that or getting or being tax
Yeah,
exempt,
yeah, yeah.
I, yeah, I don't think
You can't be
that you should
commingled in government stuff and be tax exempt.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And I don't see why you wouldn't want it that way, right? Unless you're yeah, I don't understand why you wouldn't want it that way.
Well, it's free speech for churches now to donate to whatever politicians they want to donate to.
Yeah, I don't agree. I don't agree with that. And I've been at churches where
Yeah.
politicians show up and I'm like, I think it is so not I yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. I really don't. I don't get it why a politician would show up at a church. It makes absolutely no sense to me. Because politics is a very dirty game. Like it's very
Well,
dirty.
the church is dirty. The church has been involved in dirty stuff since the beginning of time. I mean, Jesus went in there and threw the tables over. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, threw the tables over. That's why it seems odd to me. That it seems odd to me for one. One reason is uh, the whole John the Baptist, like, you know, he had like a cloth, locust and honey is what he ate, was obviously lived in poverty.
yeah.
I mean, it's almost total against what Jesus's teachings are.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
to bring in like a politician into a church, I just don't it doesn't vibe right with me. That's just me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Jesus was against interest on loans.
Yeah,
And
he didn't
you know
like
what I'm
that.
saying? So that's
Yeah.
something that we need to see somebody come out with. If they want to start making laws that have to do with what the Bible says, then we need to bring out all them things that the Bible say, including no interest on loans. And, I mean, Jesus was walking with the people who were cast out of the city,
Yeah.
prostitutes, love thy neighbor. Like, nobody loves their fucking neighbor. Like, everybody's
No.
fighting with their neighbor and in their neighbor's business and calling the police on them and telling them what to do. And
And in their interest. So I really do find that very odd. But yeah, that was I think it was in Tennessee. I wanna know. I don't remember. I gotta
I
Google
think
it
it was
now.
Tennessee.
I don't know. I'm not sure about that. Don't know where it's going.
Yeah, but luckily, Beto has
Oh, it says
outfunded
Politico. Is it political?
Politico.
Was it political? Well, PolitiFact is saying that no, a Tennessee court did not. A Tennessee court rules taxpayer-funded establishments can place signs that say "No Jews allowed." No, a Tennessee court did not approve the "No Jews allowed" sign. If your
They
time is
did though.
short, If your time is short, a 2020 Tennessee law provides legal protections for religious adoption agencies that deny services based on religious or moral beliefs. A Jewish couple was denied foster care training by a Christian group, challenged the state law in a lawsuit. A three-judge panel dismissed the lawsuit, ruling that the couple lacked standing on several grounds. The panel did not rule that the law's merits of constitutionality and did not approve the signs that say "No Jews allowed." So I got to read it because what is saying is grounds. You have to have grounds before you bring a lawsuit on.
Hmm.
So if they didn't have grounds, then they didn't have grounds. So I got to
Right,
read the
but what is the
case.
grounds though? They're claiming because they were Jewish, they're not being allowed to do the program.
Yeah, but obviously the court didn't find grounds.
I'm like, well, how
That's
do
why I
you
have to
prove
say I
that?
have to exactly. Uh, so it is. It is.
But
Blah, 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 blah.
I think they literally like in the denial reason included that it had to do with their belief.
Okay, so it has. So they have to have several elements. So, one, a legal duty that the defendant owed the plaintiff, the defendant's breach of that duty, the plaintiff's sufferance of an injury, and proof that the defendant's breach caused the injury. Is that for that? Oh my goodness. That may be for a civil case,
Yeah.
but it is civil. Yeah. So if they didn't have grounds for it, they have to have grounds. Dismissed a lawsuit from a Jewish couple who said that they denied foster care training by a Christian, but the ruling led some social media users misleadingly suggested the decision gave establishers the right to legally erect "No Jews allowed." Chancery Court in Davidson County ruled that taxpayer-funded establishments can place signs with "No Jews allowed" as long as there is at least one establishment where the service for the Jews was provided. That's wrong.
No,
Okay,
that's
these are the
right. That's what
posts.
the
No,
ruling was.
that's what the posts say. The claim is misleading. This is a spokesperson for the American Civil Liberties Union in Tennessee, whose executive director 2020 urged Tennessee Governor Bill Lee not to sign the state law that was challenged. The court did not rule on the constitutionality of the law, but rather dismissed the couple's lawsuits due to lack of standing. So they didn't have standing, as they were able to receive adoption services directly through the state. So they didn't have to go through that Christian organization. They had other alternatives to go through.
Right.
In
And it's
January, a Jewish
allowing
couple.
companies, as long as there is another place for them to go to, it allows that company to not service people based off of them being Jewish.
Well, they wouldn't service me based off me being single. I mean, if in all reality, if I were to go there, they
Yeah,
wouldn't. And they may not. Let's say if this is a Catholic organization, if I am a Christian, like a different type of Christian, evangelical
right.
or
But
Protestant, they would say
should,
no to me either.
right. But
But
with all
that's
the kids that need to be adopted right now, should we really be discriminating on someone's religion and saying, no, you can't have a child?
this goes back to taxpayer funding, right? So it ruled that taxpayer. So in this particular case, I'm assuming, now this is a big assumption, that this organization, this Christian group, was receiving taxpayer funding for
Yeah.
their agencies. But I will say that they didn't tell them they could reside. They just said that they lacked standing, that they could find other ways to to be foster parents. I think this goes back to, so the idea of giving nonprofits tax breaks, right, initially was to kind of fill in the gap on what the government was able to do and have these nonprofits do them in lieu of. So that was kind of the purpose of it. And so they gave these organizations tech because they were going to fill in the gap from what the government cannot do and have them do that.
Kind
And
of.
that's kind of,
Yeah.
I'm simplifying a very brief history of it. I'm very simplifying it. So that's the reason this happened. Now, at what point right now do you say religious groups, any religious organization, it doesn't have to be Christian, I'm talking across the board, any religious organization, you're no longer going to get taxpayer funding?
Yeah.
I mean,
And be tax exempt at the same time.
and be tax exempt at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the $1 million question, right? If you're going to be saving in tax, I always thought that was weird because let me tell you, there's some missions in San Antonio, churches, and I don't know. I think they use state funding to protect them because they're historical. But at the same time, I don't think I think the Catholic Church is involved somehow. I need to verify. And I always thought, well, how, like if it's public grounds, right, state funded grounds, and you have this church, it's still run by the Catholic Church. They are, these have masses there. At some point, let's just say a couple wants to get married there and they're same sex, like, are they able to get married there? And that's those are the questions, right? Those are the $1 million
Yeah.
questions. I don't know. I don't know
I doubt it.
because they're a Catholic, but yet they're receiving state funding because those are their parks.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's an interesting dynamic. I'm curious how the courts will flesh that out eventually, because eventually that is going to come up, undoubtedly so. And so, where do you balance people's religious beliefs and, and the legal system? Like, where is that balance?
Yeah, it should be completely separate.
Yeah,
Like tithing should be the money that the church has, not taxpayer funding.
exactly. Exactly. So,
Or like donations and stuff. Yeah.
and donations are not necessarily coming from, you know, that that tax exempt was to incentivize that.
Hold on one second.
Sure, sure.
Oh,
Do you want to put it on pause?
yeah, hold on one second.
Okay.
No, all right, there we go.
Yeah, there we go. Oh my goodness. I got bit by some weird fly. Like, I didn't even get bit by mosquitoes. I got bit by a fly.
Who?
And now my ankle's big.
Uh-oh.
I know
You
I
better
probably need
watch
to take
out.
some.
Them mosquitoes in Florida right now are making people have meningitis.
Oh my goodness. Now you gotta tell me mosquitoes in Florida.
Well, they released all those like genetically modified mosquitoes recently in Florida and Texas.
Oh, why? Why
I
are they
don't
doing?
know.
Mosquitoes are the worst. I think I'm allergic to them. Actually, I know I am. I always get like these horrible welts. It's bad. And I'll take now. I'm gonna try not to scratch and take maybe it's like a Zyrtex or something.
Yeah, definitely don't scratch it.
I'm getting like an infection or something. Ugh. It bit me like several times and I saw it and I was like, I ended up killing it, but it still ended up getting me.
Ugh.
No, so horrible. So horrible. So the summer's over almost. We're going into
Where?
August. It's July 22nd. So August is already school
Summer
time.
is not over
Fall
until
is
like the
coming.
September.
Fall is coming. Fall is coming soon.
We still got to
Soon,
make it
soon,
through
soon.
August.
Oh man. Yeah, well, the way things are going, it'll be quick. Hopefully nothing crazy happens. It's been a crazy year for weather, for people, for everything just became discontrolled, uncontrolled. One thing, talking about the activist, the food activist we were talking about,
Yeah.
and she has been doing this for years and years and years. Vandana Shiva, and what she's saying about the control of food,
Yep.
which I thought was rather interesting because she's right. Whoever controls the food controls the world.
Hmm.
And having all these issues with food and water, and she's coined for ecofeminism movement, which it really talks about the patriarchy of exclusion. And one thing was rather interesting to me, and just I was talking to a friend of mine, is that we we are still very much a patriarchal society.
Hmm.
Like, for all the women's rights that we have, and all the strives, you know, the if you look at women multimillionaires and women billionaires, most of that money, it's very few women have actually obtained their money on their own. Like, it's
Hmm.
always been because they either inherited it. I mean, there's exceptions, so I'm not, but if you look at it as a whole, it's not because, they've been able to like get it on their own. There are exceptions, of course.
Right.
And I think she's right when she's talking about ecofeminism, um, in terms of, you know, these groups, primarily men, that have controlled certain industries that have impacted the general population. And those men, like, we automatically equate that, like, we think that the Forbes list is the list that tells us who the richest people in the world are. To an extent, yes, but there's people who are not on that list who are probably just as rich, because
Or
that's,
richer. Yeah.
yeah, or richer, because that's private money. Like, they don't show their cards. Like, I believe that Forbes uses it obviously by estimates of businesses and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So I
I
don't
mean,
think
if you
they
look at
include
all of
everybody.
the oil people in like the Middle East and stuff like that, I mean, the amount of money that they have, even Putin, right? Like the amount of money that Putin has, like nobody really knows how much money he has because of all the gold and all the everything. I mean, right
Well,
now, probably not as much because of all the sanctions and stuff, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of people out there that are stupid rich that nobody even knows how much they have because it's just not out there.
no, it's not out there. So a private jet costs $45 million. A private jet costs $45 million. Just wrap your mind about how much money you have to have
Yeah,
to be
that's just
able
to own
to
it.
buy one. Yeah, just to
Yeah,
buy it. That's not maintaining it.
yeah,
That is mind-blowing money. My mind is blown with that kind of money.
yeah, it's crazy.
And
The
there's
yachts
people,
that they buy.
oh, for sure. There's people who buy $45 million um private jet to fly their kids every day from like London to, Dubai or something crazy like
What are you
that,
talking about, Kylie? Her
Oh my
7 minute
goodness.
flight.
Their 7-minute flight. Oh my God. Well, she's got the money. She's got the money
Yeah.
for
Well,
her.
they were calling her a climate criminal because of her taking like 12 and 7 minute flights.
Um, that whole family's problematic.
Every
I
single
mean,
one of them has a jet. Like,
yeah, they're
why?
problematic. They're problematic. They're an interesting group of people. Um, they're problematic. I don't know what else to say. They were like, because they were hogging water. They were saying that they were like,
Oh yeah,
um,
Courtney was watering and shit.
in California, and it's like
Yeah,
you can't. You have to. You can't be selfish like that. Like people need water, and plants need water, and animals, and everything that we need to eat. So yeah, note they don't say anything about that. At some point, really wish people would stop supporting problematic people like that.
yep.
Like, why are you buying their,
Cosmetics
their
and
cosmetics? I've
yeah,
never bought one of their cosmetics.
no,
Why are you buying their thing? And I realize they have to make money, right? But they don't address
yeah.
and not everybody's perfect, but they do a lot of things that would be,
People
considered
support them though, right? People give them the platform. People give them their money. I mean, look
mm,
at how many people went to the Travis, whatever his show. What's his
they
name?
did a lot of
Travis
people.
Scott.
Yeah.
And like people paid money to go to that, and people pay money to buy Kylie cosmetics, and people pay to buy Skims, and it's like everybody wants to down on these people, but they're the ones that are making them who they are,
Yeah.
giving them the platform, giving them the money. Like,
Giving them the money, giving them the platform to do that. Something crazy. Now, this is a crazy rumor that I heard, and it was obviously, I haven't really researched it thoroughly. Maybe I shouldn't say it because I haven't really watched it thoroughly. But just to put it out there, they are saying that some surgeons are performing a gastric bypass on mid-sized women. So it's like not necessarily, it's called a mini gastric bypass, and basically it'll
so
make you
weird.
skinny. So now, like, let's say you want to lose 50 pounds, 60 pounds, which is a lot of weight, but not like people who are like morbidly obese where they need to lose like 200, 300 pounds.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like people who are 600 pounds. Now they say that they have one that is like mini gastric bypass. That's what it's called.
that's so dumb.
And so,
Like, that's
well,
just like, stop being lazy.
yeah.
Right? Like, some people, yeah, I understand like medical conditions causing it and stuff, whatever, but stop being lazy. Like, put in the work, eat the food that you need to be eating, stop overeating, like, work out or at least go for a walk. Like, you gotta do your part. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's the point in getting your stomach shrunk if you're just gonna feed it shit still?
So you can lose, I would say that you can lose 50 pounds in maybe 3 to 6 months, right? Maybe 6 months, more like it.
Yeah, I mean, you can lose a lot. I mean, you look at people who train for shows. You can
Yeah.
lose a lot of weight in a short amount of time if you really wanted to,
Yeah.
but you
Yeah. But
have to have the self-discipline.
I think that this mini gastric bypass is dangerous.
Yeah.
If this is really what if it's not used for adequately, especially it takes so much of less of your stomach.
But
Um,
why though? For 50 or 60 pounds, like that's not even worth
I
it.
don't know if it's now again, I have to do my research on this. Because the pouch is small and the remainder of the stomach is still connected, it's possible that's just juice. Okay. I don't know. I mean, and I wonder if people that want to be skinnier are doing that, yeah, like gastric bypass that are not in
Sure.
that threshold.
I'm
That's
sure they are. I
crazy.
mean, people get unnecessary surgeries all the time.
And that's got to be not healthy for you. You're really literally cutting a piece of your stomach out. Now, I can
Yeah.
understand if somebody's 600 pounds and at that point they don't get up. Like they can't even get
They
up.
won't do gastric bypass on people like that because you have to first lose a certain amount of weight to
Yeah,
even
he
get
does.
gastric bypass.
Doctor No, yeah, Doctor No has you lose. I don't know, like I don't know. He has them. I don't know what the weight he has them lose. And I'm saying Doctor No for my 600-pound life because that's
Oh,
where I'm basing it. Yeah.
no
So
idea.
Doctor No. So there's a show called My 600-Pound Life on TLC, and there's this doctor. His name's Doctor No, and he makes them lose, like to your point, 100 pounds or 150 pounds before he even allows them to perform the surgery.
Yeah, that's
And
most gastric bypass surgeries are
yeah,
like that.
and it's the stories behind that, Michelle, are so sad. Like when somebody's morbidly obese like that, there's I mean, there was this one girl and her family loved her so much, like it made me cry. She was basically abused when she was a child, and that kind of triggered her overeating.
Yeah,
Like abused, and then her you could tell how her family was very loving toward her and how they treated her because they were aware of the trauma. I think it was a relative of hers that did that to her, and they were kind of aware of the trauma, and they kind of like treated her so kindly, and she ended up getting her surgery and she ended up being successful. But when you hear the trauma behind why they're doing what they do, or why they eat,
yeah.
it's like it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. But I will say this, because one of the things that they mentioned, almost all of the women that are on that show are in a relationship of some sort.
I know it's crazy, right?
it's
Like
it
I look at
is.
that sometimes too, and I'm like, "Fuck, I'm single, sitting over here, can't get nobody."
They
And like
do.
Amy from My 600-Pound Life has like a husband and shit.
Yeah, and then they treat them well too. Like it's
Yeah,
treating them well. It's so interesting. Some of them don't make it, like once they start getting their mobility back, some of the relationships don't work because I'm sure there was some
right.
codependency there.
Yeah.
But some of them do stay and work it out. But yeah, that that poor lady, she had a very sad story, and it was kind of interesting hearing her story. But getting that mini gastric bypass to lose weight. So again, this is all alleged, but people on TikTok were saying that they thought that maybe Chloe, one of the sisters, got that
Mhm.
on her because she just
She lost
lost
a lot of weight.
so much weight. Yeah, she's got
She's
very, very,
it's very small.
very small, very, very small. And they're saying that maybe is a possibility because they show them eating pizza, but the thing is that 2 bites and you're full.
Yeah, I haven't really seen Chloe eating pizza though. I mean, I've seen her eating like pretty healthy, but I don't watch the show, so
Yeah, they have like pictures. I mean, in all reality, it's snippets of the show. For all we know, they ate the
but
pizza and spit it
there's
out.
also like so many different things that you can take. Like I'm not saying she's on anything, but being as famous and all the money that they have, you can get growth hormone, which also helps you lose weight and look healthy and look young. And I mean, growth hormone is kind of expensive, but they've got the money. I'd imagine she'd be taking something like that. Because as we age, we start to deplete our growth hormone. And so, like, you see a lot of bodybuilders take it. Obviously, they use it to an excess. But if you take it on just like a actual therapeutic small dose and stuff like that, I mean, it can be very beneficial. A lot of celebrities use stuff like that, like growth hormone,
You're
because
right.
it
They have access to
it
all of
keeps
that.
you younger. I mean, that was one of the things when I was doing bodybuilding that I did take.
The growth
And
hormone.
mhm, yeah, because it still keeps you looking feminine. It, I mean, helps you with rebuilding your cells. It literally like revitalizes you, but it's
And
expensive.
do you get it from your doctor?
Yeah, I did at the time. He was like a doctor that pretty much he saw a ton of bodybuilding clients. And so, not saying he was the best doctor, probably doing some sketchy shit. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's quite expensive to
And
get it,
did
but
it?
there's stuff like that that you can take that will help you lose weight and look good, and
So
you know,
you're saying that they're because of their you know what, you're right. They have money, they can that's why they look the way that they do,
or there's
you know?
Adderall and stuff like that. Adderall makes you not want to eat, makes you lose weight. Or there's I mean, there's so many different things that you can take that will essentially, no matter what you eat or drink, will allow you to lose weight.
I'd be scared. The best thing to do it is to do it naturally, to your point. Like, that's the
Yeah.
best thing to do it. And get into to your point, get into a regimen of exercising and eating well and just taking care of your diet.
Hmm.
Because you're getting junk. I know I eat junk. I know I need to stop eating junk. But to your point, it's getting into that mindset where you're not eating that junk and you're just going to say, I'm not going to eat it. And after a while, once you wean off it, your body does no longer craves it.
Yeah, and then when you do eat it, you feel like shit.
Yeah.
I know every time I eat out now, like, I regret it. I feel like garbage afterwards, and I'm usually disappointed because the food doesn't even taste that good when I eat
Mm-mm.
it,
Mm.
especially fast food.
Mm-hmm. It's
Yeah.
insane
Because,
for
like, I
sure.
make so much stuff at home, like the blueberry muffins, chocolate muffins, stuff like that for the boys to eat. I make those from scratch, and they're delicious. And so when I eat stuff that's made at the store, it's disgusting to me. Or like I make my own naan bread, um, all kinds of stuff. I make my own peanut butter here, and just eating stuff at the store after eating stuff you make at home is just like
Doesn't
you
taste
don't
the
want to
same.
eat it.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
That is 100% true. So, so you think it's about that time?
Hmm, I don't know. Maybe I was gonna say too. Speaking about food, did you hear that Skittles is in a lawsuit right now because of the titanium dioxide that they put in the Skittles is literally toxic,
Oh no.
and so it's been banned literally everywhere else, and Skittles are pretty much banned everywhere. So what they did is they went ahead and in other countries took that ingredient out, but in the US they have not done that yet. And so there's literally a lawsuit that is going on right now with Skittles, or with Mars, which is the company that sells Skittles. Um, but that's pretty much all food though. Like, all food has known carcinogens in it. So any starch item that's fried becomes a carcinogen. So like potato chips or french fries or literally any simple carb that's fried, it becomes a carcinogen, and it's terrible to the body. And so
I
if you notice, like, a lot of potato chip bags now actually have a warning on it now because it's required to sell stuff in the state of California. You have to have that warning label on known carcinogens.
I wonder how much is what they're using to preserve that particular item and how much is it natural? Because fried foods have been eating for the longest time. And I know that my grandparents ate fried food. My grandmother ate fried food. My
Yeah,
grandfather, and they all died at a very but I also think that their food was all organic. They didn't put anything in their fruits and
right.
vegetables. Think the cows were grass fed. They didn't have any hormones in them. And I think that the food that they ate was a pure, right? And then you
More
don't have
pure,
to take
yeah.
yeah, more pure. And then you don't have to take into consideration the other things. Like I'm not saying that pollution didn't occur during that time. I'm
Oh,
just saying
pollution was terrible
yeah,
back then because you didn't have the
yeah,
EPA.
for sure. We didn't have the EPA, but you didn't have as much industry either, right? So collectively, I would say, right?
I mean, how far back are we talking?
I would say 1920s.
Oh, yeah, probably.
Yeah, 1920s.
It was like the beginning of the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah, something like that. So Yeah, so I just think that maybe that played a lot
Was that
in
roaring 20s?
yeah.
The roaring
Yeah.
20s.
I think that played a lot in why they lived long, and they smoked, and my grandfather smoked on top of that.
Oh my gosh, with the cigarettes right now, the Biden administration is literally trying to cut down the amount of nicotine that can be in cigarettes. Like, that is not the problem we need to be worrying about inside of cigarettes. We need to be worrying about the formaldehyde that's in it because that's what's killing people,
Yeah. Yeah,
not the nicotine.
I don't know why the focus on that is, and also the focus on this. I remember when the e-cigarettes, I remember thinking they were lame. I was never a smoker, so I will say I remember thinking, "Oh my goodness, that's lame." They have like an e-cigarette and it's supposed to be like the alternative to, smoking a cigarette, and it was supposed to be healthy because you were not healthy, but
It
it was
doesn't
supposed to be
have all the carcinogens that cigarettes have because you're burning something, right? The cigarettes are being burned and they've got chemicals in them. As opposed to the e-cig, it's a little better, but you're still getting vapor inside your lungs, which causes
yeah,
popcorn lung. Yeah,
exactly. So it was just kind of like, okay, so it's not yeah, it's just interesting. And now it's like people would want to smoke those indoors and now they don't allow them. It's just kind of hot mess.
yeah,
But hopefully that something, but yeah, you're right. That's not something that we need to be focusing on. I wish that there was like a sweep of, you know, us having like better protection with our food. I wish there was sweeping regulation that dealt with food and
yeah.
water requirements.
Well, all those are getting rolled back. So, I mean,
Yeah,
I don't see any huge change coming soon. I mean, in pretty much all other countries that are on the same playing field as us, all the shit that's in our food is banned in those countries. Like,
it's crazy.
Pop Tarts in like the UK and stuff like that have like 5 ingredients in it. And here it's got like all these chemicals and dyes and like not even real fruit in it. It's
There's
disgusting.
no need. No need. Speaking of disgusting, let's talk about Elon Musk's father, Errol Musk.
Yeah, that is so like, mm,
Bizarro. In my mind, apparently Errol is a strong believer that we're here in this world to procreate,
yep.
is what he
Well,
said
I
in this
think Elon
interview.
believes the same.
Elon believes the same. And but I did not know why Elon didn't mess with his dad. Like Elon doesn't have is estranged from him. And
Well,
then
he was
after this
abusive
interview, on
too.
top of
Yeah.
what so Arrow marries this, and I don't know what the his baby mama marries this lady's mother. She knows him since she was 4. She has step siblings that are fathered by Errol.
Hmm.
And then she ends up their parents were together for 18 years, so it wasn't even like he didn't
Yeah.
see her grow up. He did.
I think
And
they have
then
two.
yeah, they have 2 together, but he has kids with the lady the girl's mother. Like not the girl's, the woman's mother. She's
Yeah, but
not a
I
girl.
think his stepdaughter, I think they have two
Oh
kids
yeah, they
together.
do.
Yeah,
They have 2 together. And he
that's
says
so
that
wild.
the only reason that they're not together is because of the age difference, and that it upset a lot of his kids, and that's why they don't talk to him. I'm like, you think you basically raised this girl, you
Go
raised her
figure.
since she was 4 years old.
Yeah,
You had 2 kids with her mom, so she has step siblings. So not only are you her sister's father, but also her stepfather, and then you end up getting her pregnant not once but twice.
yeah, that's weird. But yeah, his
Ew.
dad was abusive to him growing up, like terribly.
He's
as
not.
well. A lot of people are like, oh, Elon got his daddy's emerald money, blah, blah, blah. Like, you can tell a lot of people have not read his biography or whatever, because he literally wanted nothing to do with his dad.
No. But there is something to say about him having a leg, like, how should I put this? Having proximity to wealth
Hmm.
because of his dad.
Yeah.
And
But
sometimes
he didn't
proximity to
become
wealth is,
rich because of that, though. Like, he became rich from creating Zip 2 and selling Zip 2. And, like, he was creating video games from the time he was, like, I think 12 or some shit like that, and selling them. I think he sold his first video game for, like, $500 at, like, 12 years old.
wow.
Yeah.
So he's really a smart man.
He's self-taught. He had read literally, like, every single book in the library at his school before he was, like, 9 or some shit like that. He's, like, all self-taught.
Yeah. For some reason, I don't know why I thought he was formally educated
He had went to college, and I think he has a bachelor's.
in
Um,
engineering.
what is it in? I forget what it's in. I think he was going to go to another college for some kind of engineering, but he dropped out from that.
He went to Stanford and then UPenn.
Yeah, he dropped out of one of them though. I think he has like 1 or 2 bachelor's degrees. But I mean, before that, he literally had read like every single encyclopedia at the libraries that he was when he was like 9, 10 years old.
Oh, he went to the University of Pennsylvania. So he has a Bachelor of Science in Physics and another one
There you
in
go. Yeah.
economics. So yeah, he is formally educated.
But he was gonna go for engineering somewhere, and then I think he dropped out.
Yeah, he's got the whole thing. He's definitely controversial for sure, Elon is. And so is
Oh
his
yeah.
family.
Did you see, because he was on that yacht or whatever, and
Oh, yeah.
I know you've seen that picture. So someone did the golden ratio on him. Have you seen that?
No,
I think
I have
he did.
not.
I think he posted it or something on Twitter. It was like a meme of the golden ratio because it like goes like that, and how his chest is out. So the golden ratio literally fit. I was like,
I gotta check that out.
no.
We're gonna check
Yeah,
that
it's
out.
funny.
I mean, let me say that he needed to be out there. He needed
Yeah,
to be
he's
out there.
so white. But I mean, like, he's always inside at
Yeah,
work.
yeah, for sure. So he was just taking a little vacation, and then
Which
they
is
caught him on
weird
there.
that he was on a yacht because, I mean, he's not really usually about places like that, you know?
Maybe it's a new girlfriend.
There was a
Who the heck
guy,
knows?
I don't know who the guy was.
Sure, he was invited or something
Oh,
like
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Um, Emily. So I was looking on. So I was looking at this model, Emily Ratajkowski, or something like that. She was Victoria. I think she was Victoria's Secret's model, and her husband cheated on her. And people were like, "Oh, if there's no hope for
Oh, if she
Emily,
got
there's no
cheated
hope
on.
for us." I'm like, "Oh my god, that's so stupid."
Yeah.
People cheat because they cheat because they want to cheat, and it's not always like you'd think. Oh, they're gonna
Not
cheat on
about
this drop.
looks.
No,
Yeah. It's about needs
no,
that aren't being met from all the different needs. I mean,
yeah.
let's
It could
just
even be insecurity, something.
yeah. I mean, that's just like, have you seen recently? I know this is kind of different, but kind of the same. But there's a study that just came out that actually pretty much proves that depression is not necessarily linked to serotonin, and yet they've been giving people like SSRIs, pushing it, saying you have a chemical imbalance and that's why you're depressed, and come to find out like there's literally like no link between it. And I'm like, well, yeah, duh, because people are depressed because their life conditions and their life do not match their ideal in their head of what their life should look like. That's why some people who are completely happy with their life, they're happy because their ideal of life matches what their life is. And they just
Mm-hmm.
go about, you know, because they're happy that they have the things that they have and it matches what they think. But most people are depressed because their idea in their head of what life should look like is not what their life looks like. And that's why they're depressed. You know, it's that's pretty much the link. I mean, if you ask each person that you find that's depressed, I guarantee you that you're going to find that they're not happy with the way their life is for whatever reason. Like, oh, I didn't figure I would be a single mother at this time in my life and I would have a husband and or whatever, you know, or I didn't think I
Yeah.
would this or that or the other.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what you'll find.
Um, I was speaking of like depression and mental illness and the legal. I know it's kind of related, kind of not, but I was listening to Steve-O. He used to be on the show called Jackass,
Yeah,
and he was
talking
saying
about
that
Bam the other day.
yeah,
Yeah, I
but
heard that.
did you know that he has a vasectomy? Like Steve-O,
That
he
Steve-O
says
does? Yeah,
yes, and
because he said it's like irresponsible for people to be having kids. Like you have a license to get a fish, but not to have
what
kids.
his reasoning was, and I don't know if you listened to the same thing, but his reasoning was is because in his family, he's all like he doesn't want to pass his genes on to somebody else because
Yeah,
in
I've
his
heard that.
family he had like a whole family tree with like alcoholics and mental illness and just
Yeah,
horrible, and he felt that the link is genetic, and he kind of felt that I think it should stop with him.
yeah,
And I find that rather interesting, saying, "Hey, I don't know if I, you know, capable and rather responsible for for Steve-O,
yeah,
to say
yep.
like, no, I mean he's a totally different like person. Like you still see that smile, he's got that raspy voice, but once you start hearing him in the interviews that he's giving lately, he's like making a lot of sense. Like you can
He's
tell that he's
been very
in different place.
self-reflective. Yeah,
Yes, yes, yes. You can tell that he's been very self-reflective and been in rehabilitation, and now Bam's out and back in. It's
yeah.
unfortunate that
I
those
think they said Bam is back in and back into a point where like he can't even have his phone.
yeah. You know
Yeah,
what's sad? You know that guy Army Hammer? Um, he was in a couple of movies. I think he was in a movie with Johnny Depp. Uh,
I don't know who that is. I don't know who you're talking about.
well, he was in that movie with Johnny Depp where Johnny Depp played it was what was his name? It was a Western movie. Depp Western.
What's his name?
Army Hammer.
Army Hammer.
Yeah, he was in what is the movie called? No, not Dead Man.
Army
No.
Hammer with Johnny Depp movie.
Yeah, and Army Hammer.
I don't I don't know who Army Hammer is. The Lone
Lone
Ranger.
Ranger. Lone Ranger. So he played the Lone Ranger. Army Hammer played the Lone Ranger. Well, he got into a lot of trouble for allegedly, I don't know, it was like drinking blood, something, just
That's very bizarre.
bizarre, relationship. Um, what is it?
Sounds like Megan Fox.
Sadomasochism. Yeah, like that sort of I don't know how to not be crass about it, but just kind of like sort of freaky play. I don't know how to
Yeah,
explain it.
like satanic. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think he was like biting them. It was just weird. Like he had like a whole cannibalism and abuse scandal with this one
I think that's coming
model.
back.
Yeah. Well,
Weird. Okay.
he went to rehab. Supposedly his family kind of like, because he comes from a billionaire family, cut him off. And so I believe that, not I believe,
Of
I
course, you'd be
know.
doing some weird shit like that coming from a
Yeah.
billionaire family.
Yeah. So he went into rehab, and then they said that they saw him selling um timeshares or something like that, apartments or condos, not timeshares, but like condos in the Cayman Islands. And so they saw a picture of him, and then they kind of discovered that what he was doing, and people were kind of like, hey, he's working 9 to 5. But my understanding, this is my understanding, that when you get out of rehab, they want you to work. Like they want you to go out there and do something. Like they don't want you to stand
Yeah.
around, because it's like they want you to
Idle
work.
hands
And
are the
so,
devil's
yeah,
playground. Yeah.
yeah. So they make them work, and he was working. And supposedly, since his family cut him off, who's subsidizing? His name's I always want to call him I always call him not Downey. What's his last name?
Robert
Downey
Downey
Jr.
Jr.?
Yeah, supposedly Robert Downey Jr. subsidizing him
Hmm.
and helping him out, which Robert Downey Jr. would have the money to subsidize him and
He's
say
like
like,
his
look,
mentor, or what is it that
probably
you
some
have?
sort of sober coach,
Yeah.
to be. And I think that they have. So one of the things that Brad Pitt was saying is that he was in an AA group, and he has to meet with his group.
Hmm.
So his group is a very so a while back, I believe it was Robert Downey Jr. went to an AA meeting, and since he was a celebrity, somebody recorded him and what he had to say. And those meetings are supposed to be pretty sacred, right? You're not supposed to really say what.
Yeah.
So it was a big deal. And so now celebrities, what they do is they have more insulated AA
I, I
meetings.
would think that that's pretty much who you would be around in those type of settings, being A-list actors, that you would only be around other A-list actors and A-list people.
Well, apparently Robert wasn't, like, he was like in a normal one.
Oh, that's wild.
Um, Meeting recording. I'm trying to find it right now because it was like, um, it might have been him. I'm trying to figure out. I guess it was it was Hollywood back in, maybe it was 1996, something like that. It might be in the 90s. It was been in the 90s.
Hmm,
Um,
okay.
and they recorded him. Sometimes these folks are they're kind of a weird bunch, especially if they're celebrities that like to hang out with regular people. I just
Yeah.
always find it funny when you see pictures of celebrities coming out of, like, apparently there's a grocery store that they like to go to, or
Like
um
Air One or what?
no,
Like a
it's not
normal
even
grocery
that fancy,
store?
like a normally grocery store. I'm sure it's got some fancy stuff in there, but like a normal grocery store. And then, you know, when they go overseas, obviously some of them aren't that international, so they're not like easily recognizable.
Hmm.
So they're kind of incognito. And if you think about it, like there's only so many places overseas that you can see like American football. Or, like if you want to go to a bar and watch football, they're not gonna be playing. They may be playing
Yeah.
soccer, but there's
Right.
only so many American bars, so many, types of eateries and the expats like hanging out at those locations because they speak English. So when they go overseas, it's not that far fetched for them to be traveling and people not knowing who they are. But back to this whole, yeah, Army Hammer, and supposedly Robert Downey Jr. is helping him out, which makes sense because if it's an insular group, because I think the alcoholic thing is like once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic, so you can stop going to AA meetings when you feel better, but then they start going to AA meetings again.
Hmm.
So apparently Brad Pitt's one of those insular ones. So I wonder to your point, maybe he is his mentor because he's been
Yeah, well,
sober
I was
for
trying to
X number
think.
amount of years.
There's like something that you call them that it's not a mentor. There's like a name for it. I can't remember the name though. Sponsor. They sponsor you.
Sponsor.
Yeah. This
Sponsor
girl
him.
that
So
I
you may
used to
look like a
talk to,
sponsor.
she had a sponsor, and she would have to keep in touch with her, and then I think she was talking about sponsoring somebody like down the road or something like that.
Having to talk to that. That's a big deal.
Yeah. And like when you're struggling, like you call them and stuff like that.
And say, hey, I'm struggling with this. I just feel that I want to
Relapse, yeah.
relapse. It's got to be very difficult having an addiction like that. And addiction is such a funny thing because there's people that can try, for example, something as harsh as heroin and not be impacted by it,
Yeah.
and somebody that will try it and are hooked for their whole lives.
Yeah. Well, typically like with addiction, if the pain of life is worse than the pain of being high, then typically the being high is the choice, right? Because it's where's the less pain at the moment. And then plus the dopamine and stuff like that that happens too that makes you addicted. Because dopamine addiction can happen in so many different ways, right? Like you look at somebody can be addicted to the gym, they can be addicted to sodas, they can be addicted to all these things, but it's wherever the less pain is going to be at is typically, you know, how that works and why it happens.
That's always an interesting topic to to discuss because that's always interesting to me. Or you have four people raised the exact same way with an abusive father, and only one of them's addicted.
Yeah. There's
It's
so much we still don't understand for sure about the
about it,
brain. Yeah, well,
and
about the brain and why it does what it does, and
exactly, exactly, and why, to your point, why it does what it does, and why people are in those situations, and why something like at some point, like for example, like back to Steve O's family tree, where he says, "Hey, my family's like, alcoholics, and it's horrible." And it's like he's like every single one of them on my mom's side, and then you're just thinking, okay, how much, to your point, is how your body processes it? Is there a genetic link? And then how much is it, trauma?
atmosphere too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, I mean,
trauma.
if that's the only atmosphere that's ever around you and you don't have an atmosphere to compare otherwise, well, what's your likelihood of taking on that same atmosphere, right? There's
Yeah,
nothing else to compare it to.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting for sure. Interesting for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was rather interesting that Robert Downey was. I don't know how true that is. They're saying that. I mean, to your point, he could just be his sponsor, and that's it.
Yeah, I have no idea. I think I had briefly heard about that like whenever it happened a long time ago, but just because it was such a wild story. But then all the news cycles, like,
They're all like wild stories. People are just out there like,
yeah,
I just think I think it's just too much information.
yeah, we definitely have a lot of information right now, and it's just so much crazy information right now, right? Like, I don't know if you heard about it here because I didn't hear about it here, but in UK news announced that I guess the military was basically chasing a Tic Tac UFO like last week.
A UFO.
Yeah, a Tic Tac UFO. So the Tic Tac UFO has actually already been seen by quite a few military pilots,
Yeah.
like 2 years ago,
Yeah.
right? In the water, and it had went literally. I don't know if you've ever listened to the pilot actually talk about it. I forget his name, but he was on the Rogan podcast. You could hear
Yeah.
him talking to Rogan about it and stuff. But yeah, so like literally like last week, that same kind of UFO was chased again. But you didn't hear the US news talking about that shit.
Who knows what's going on?
Yeah,
Who
it's
knows?
so much wild stuff right now. So
It
much wild
is.
stuff.
It is. All right, Michelle, I think it's about that time.
All right. Well, subscribe so you can know whenever we drop each episode and have a good night.
Good night.